Hey, hi, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thanks for joining the webinar today to talk about our reconsideration process, which just opened today. My name is Alice Young, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Admissions for Outreach and Recruitment. And I'm joined by some colleagues here in our Admissions and Financial Aid office. Do you want to introduce yourselves really quick?
I'm Amanda Pursuit. I'm the Director of Public Interest Financial Support.
Hi, I'm Rosanna Hill Thomas, Associate Director of Financial Aid.
And I believe we also have Aubrey joining us as well, who also works in our financial aid office. So we have a few of the folks here who work in admissions and financial aid. They are going to be helping answering questions throughout this process. I am going to leave a substantial amount of time at the end for your questions, but in the meantime, if you do have something you'd like to ask now, if you could please use the Q&A feature, and that is how we are going to organize the questions, try to answer them, and then if we can't answer them via typing, we will answer them at the end. So hopefully you can all see my screen okay. I haven't heard otherwise, so I'm hoping you can. And we'll go ahead and get started. So just a little bit of an overview today for the next hour. We are going to be giving an overview of gift aid in general. What do we look for? What does the timeline look like between initial offers and reconsideration? Where we're at with our awarding process. What is reconsideration? I'll walk you through what that looks like, some important notes, things to keep in mind, and then frequently asked questions, and then there'll be a good amount of time for questions that you have. So first off, just in general, to give an overview of our process, gift aid, what do we look for? We do not use any sort of matrix like LSAT or GPA when we are awarding gift aid. We do a holistic review, just like we do with our general admissions applications, where we go through and read your whole application, your CAS report, all of the pieces of your application that we have in order to assess for merit aid. And these, obviously, we have a very competent pool of admitted students who have already been admitted and are amazing. And so how do we differentiate between all of you? So these are the sorts of things that are listed here on the screen that we look for. We also, when we're doing our comprehensive gift aid review, we do consider need-based aid. So in other words, there's not a separate process for need-based aid or what you might think of as financial aid. When you were admitted, you should have been sent the supplemental gift aid application. We ask that you complete that within a few weeks of your the date of your admission. And that asks questions about your current financial circumstances and also historical information as well, as far as any sort of financial obstacles you might have faced growing up. So it's pretty comprehensive of both current and historical circumstances. And that is what we use to determine need. So as long as you have, as long as you have submitted the SGA, you are being considered for need. So there's nothing additional you would need to do for that. If you haven't submitted the SGA, it's not too late to go in and do that still. And you do get a confirmation email when you've submitted that, if you want to go back and look through that. And so those are going to be awarded again with our general gift aid. So when you received a gift aid offer from us, whether it's initial offer or reconsideration, it could be based mostly on merit, mostly on need, or a combination of that. Okay, so a little bit about the timeline and where we are at. As I mentioned, the SGA has been rolling sort of since we started admitting people back in November. And we were also sending out initial gift aid offers starting in December through basically yesterday. So you can think of our gift aid process as sort of two distinct processes. So there's an initial gift aid process that happens, and then there's a secondary round, which we call reconsideration, which just opened today. So most of you all should have heard by yesterday if you were receiving an initial offer or not. unless you were very recently admitted. So if you were admitted in March, in the first week of March, we are going to ask for you to just immediately go into our reconsideration process in order to be considered for gift aid. For those of you that do hold a gift aid offer from us, most likely you have a deadline of April 1st. You can see here on the spreadsheet too, we have general enrollment decisions deadlines, which are April 15th and May 15th. What are those? So April 15th, you have an option to say, yes, I'm definitely coming to Berkeley. Tentatively accepting, which is basically maybe I'm still weighing offers or I'm still waiting to hear from you all on gift aid and I need additional time, or you can withdraw at that point. If you select the tentative option, you have until May 15th to give us a final decision. However, if you have been awarded gift aid, you are going to have a separate deadline, and that is the deadline that you should be using in order to give us a firm yes or no decision. So the decision dates of April 15th and May 15th, you can just think about as general enrollment decisions. And if you are awarded gift aid, you are going to have a separate date. And that is the date where you have to give us a final yes or no decision so that we know if you're not coming, we can re-award that money out to people in the reconsideration pool. Reconsideration open today. That is going to run through April 29th. We are going to begin awarding for reconsideration next week. So the earliest that you will probably hear back from us would be March 27th. And after that point, we send decisions sort of every few days, once or twice a week, so we can try to get back to you as soon as possible. And hopefully by the date that you've indicated that you have a deadline from another school. And then for those awards, most of the deadlines that we are going to be giving are anywhere from early April through the end of April or even in May, depending on when you're given that award. So just make sure you pay close attention to the date on your gift aid letter. Okay, so where are we at? I think I covered most of this already. If you do have a gift aid decision already with a deadline coming up, so if you have, for example, an April 1st decision and you were thinking about going through the reconsideration process, we would recommend that you go through that soon so that we can try to get you out a decision by that April 1st date. If you submit for reconsideration and you have a deadline coming up from us from an initial offer and you haven't heard from us by that date, you should email admits@law.berkeley in order to request an extension of your initial gift aid offer. We do try our best to try to, as long as you submit it within time, to still review and get you a decision by that initial date, but sometimes you may need to request an extension. So just email admits that's indicated here. And then just a note, for those of you, it's sort of just about our general process. I know it was disappointing to receive the no email that many of you got yesterday. That is not at all an indication of whether or not we want you to be here and be a student at Berkeley Law. It's really more of an indication just of our financial circumstances. We have a very limited budget. We have over 1,000 students that have been admitted, and we're just unable to give every single person an award. And if we did that, it would be a very, very small award. And so that's why we've decided to sort of separate the process into two distinct processes, sort of the initial review and then reconsideration, where in years past, there's been about 400 to 500 people that apply for reconsideration. So it's a smaller pool than our general pool. And it also shows indication from you that you're interested in us, so we can make sure that we allocate the funds that we do have to the students that are most likely to attend Berkeley Law. So I do apologize if you got that email and you were disappointed. But unfortunately, it's pretty normal for most people to not get an initial offer and to go through reconsideration. And I've seen it many, many times that people are able to get a substantial offer later on in reconsideration. So it does not mean that you're going to get a total no from us. So we do recommend, if you're still interested, if you're watching this and you're kind of wondering, what does this all mean? Like, please indicate your interest, go through reconsideration, and you do get, it's a completely new review. We review everything you've indicated in the reconsideration form, and also we go through and review your admissions application again, everything that you initially applied with, your CAS report, and also the SGA if you submitted that. Okay, so having said that, reconsideration, just a general overview, what is that? So if you either have an offer from us or you don't have an offer from us and you've been admitted elsewhere, I'm sure that's the case for most of you because you all are amazing and you've been admitted elsewhere. You probably have offers from other schools as well that you're considering, and you have a pretty short time frame in order to make this huge decision. In order to streamline this process, we have created this formal reconsideration form for everybody to fill out. We found that this is the best way to keep track of everything and also to make sure that we are trying our hardest to review those and get them out to you in a timely fashion. So there's a form that you can complete if you want us to look at another offer. If for whatever reason you don't have other offers, or you would just like to submit the form just based on financial circumstances, or you've had a major change in your life or health or anything like that over the last few months, and it would look different than when you initially applied, you can also submit the form based on sort of change or extenuating circumstances as well. And there's some more information in there for you to complete that if you felt like maybe the SJ didn't capture your complete financial circumstances, we give you another spot to basically tell us more about what we should know about your financial situation. Okay, so if you have already received an initial offer, you may not be eligible to complete reconsideration. Those awards are listed here. And the reason being is that all of these are substantial awards that if you went through reconsideration, we probably wouldn't be able to give you anything more than what we already have. And so that is the reasoning with that. If you have questions, you're welcome to email us, but the reason is that most of these are either full tuition or close to full tuition. And to give you all an idea, it's in our FAQ sheet about sort of where our median award stands. For last year, our median award was $32,000 a year. Our 25th percentile was $20,000 a year, and our 75th percentile was $45,000 a year. So most of the awards listed here are sort of within that range, and that is the reasoning of why we don't want to make you go through reconsideration when most likely we wouldn't be able to increase those awards at all. So in order to submit reconsideration, there's the form that's on the admitted students website. It is only a one-time form. So when thinking about when to apply, we've already seen a good amount of people that have applied today, but it is open until the end of April. So because you can only submit it once, we do request that you sort of wait until you have a good idea, or at least wait until you sort of heard from your top choices about not only where you're admitted, but where you're receiving aid. I know a lot of you are still waiting for decisions. Some schools have indicated they're coming out with scholarship decisions on particular dates. So if there's a school that you're really waiting to hear from, or a date that they've given, it might be beneficial to wait until that time in order to apply. So you could definitely still apply later on in April, or even the end of April. It's not a first come, first serve. We do allocate our budget for the entire reconsideration process. So don't feel like you have to rush to submit today or in the next few days, because every year we have that happen where somebody submits on the first day and then a week later they receive this really great offer that they're considering, and now we might have already gotten back to them about reconsideration. They can't submit the form again. So if that's the case where you just feel like you're not really sure where you're at right now and you still need a little bit of time, feel free to take that time until April to kind of get a sense of where you're at. And in the form, we're just going to request some basic information from you, the reason for your request, documentation. So for those submitting, the vast majority of you submitting with another school's offer, we just want like a PDF of that offer. We're going to ask you what the other offer is per year, if it comes with anything else like housing stipend, summer funding, anything like that. We're going to ask you the deadline date. And then there's a text box in there, which is further information, basically clarifying your reasoning, reiterating your interest in attending Berkeley Law. If there's anything else that you feel like we should know about, that's sort of your place to kind of indicate your decision-making process in there. So important notes, I think I already covered the first one, that you can only submit it once. Again, we apologize about the restrictive nature of this. It's just with handling 400 to 500 requests, if everybody were to submit it multiple times, we would never be able to actually review and get back to people in a timely fashion. So this way we can prioritize reviewing and trying to respond by that other school's date. Another note about gift aid, as far as what you should ask for, we get a lot of questions about this because in the form we do ask that you actually give us a dollar amount that you're requesting. And our gift aid only covers up to the cost of tuition. We don't provide stipends or anything like that. So the maximum that you can request would be that full tuition, depending on if you're a California or non-California resident. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read through this. Once you've submitted the form, you will receive an email decision from us. Unless you withdraw, we are going to reconsider your request live. And it's not just a simple like yes or no, or we're going to match what you're asking or not. Sometimes it could be more, sometimes it could be less. You are going to get a thorough review and you will receive an email decision from us, even if it's past the date, the deadline that you put in there. We are still reviewing. Most likely we just have a backlog of people that all had the same date. So unless you withdraw from us and tell us you're no longer interested, we are still going to be reviewing and getting those out as soon as we can. And we're going to give you a specific deadline. Usually we try to give at least 2 weeks for you to make a decision and get back to us. And you are going to have to give us a firm acceptance or withdrawal. You don't get that tentative option if you get a gift aid offer. Okay, so this is sort of an update for this year, and we're trying to provide more information for you all to make a better decisions about how to go through this process. So we get a lot of questions every year about which offer should I use. I've got a lot of different offers from schools. Some of them are ranked more highly, some of them are full tuition, and I'm just not sure what to submit. So in an effort to provide a little bit more guidance, we actually did do a sort of a big data analysis this year. We went back and looked through 3 years of reconsideration data. And we looked at all of the offers we've received from which schools and which ones we were most likely able to match or give a substantial amount of what you're requesting on. So the schools listed here represent the offers that that you all used the most, that we saw most in the process, and also the ones that we were able to either match what you were asking for in the reconsideration request or partially match it. So we were able to maybe give 75% or more of what you were able to, what you were asking for. So our guidance is going to be, if you have an offer from one of these schools, you should try to use that. I know some of you have multiple offers from some of these schools. So if that's the case, then I would use the school that you're most likely considering other than Berkeley Law. If you don't have an offer from one of these schools, or maybe you do, but you are actually considering another school, you can still submit that to us. In the form, there is an other school section, and then it'll ask you which other school that you're considering, and you can give us more information. We realize that sometimes you are looking at those other offers. Maybe it's full tuition, and maybe it's a school that's local to you, like in the state that you're in. Maybe they offer some specialized programming, and that's why you're considering them. So you can still submit that. Again, when you're looking at like asking us how much you're asking for, if you do have a full tuition offer from another school, especially if it's not one of the schools listed here, most likely we are not going to be able to offer a full tuition offer. So just keep that in mind when you are putting in your request for what you're asking for. I think it's kind of got to make sense. So yeah, general guidance is try to apply with one of these schools, but of course, if you have something else, just use that text box in there about your decision-making process to contextualize that a little bit for us and explain why that is the other offer that you are most strongly considering. And then another note just about comparing offers. a good way to think about it is looking at total cost of attendance. The reason being, there's a lot of variation in tuition costs, especially amongst public schools and private schools. So for example, amongst most of our sort of peer schools, our tuition is going to be lower than most, but we are in a little bit more of an expensive area than a lot of other schools. So you can look at total cost of attendance to kind of see overall out of pocket, what does that look like? And then just a note on cost of attendance, make sure when you're going to other schools' websites for that, some of them don't list the student health insurance fees and don't actually list that in there when you are paying for that, in fact. Or they might put like a little asterisk and then the amount at the bottom. So just make sure you're comparing apples to apples with that and you're getting the correct amount, because most schools, including ours, do include the student health insurance fees, and that can be a difference of, $10,000 to $20,000 a year, depending on the school. So just to get kind of an overall cost analysis, that's the best way to do it. But of course, you're going to be looking at other things. You're going to be looking at career placements, particularly for whichever sort of practice area or industry you're most interested in. If you are focused on public interest, then looking at support in the Career Development Office, what their LRAP program covers. Do they have summer funding? What opportunities do they have for first-year students for public interest? These are all going to be things that you're looking at. And then, of course, the non-quantifiable factors such as location, culture, programming, where you see yourself practicing after law school, all going to come into play. So just a quick comparison with cost of attendance. I've listed here as an example for Berkeley Law. If you were to receive gift aid of $30,000, what that would actually look like for your total cost of $108,000. So subtracting out the $30,000 for gift aid, your net cost is going to be $78,000. This is assuming you're not a California resident. School A, you're going to get the exact same offer, but their tuition is about 10 grand more expensive. Living expenses are slightly cheaper, so your total cost is going to be 114, which leaves you a little bit actually more on the net cost of 84,000. School B, again, you've been offered the exact same. Their tuition is slightly higher at 70, but their living expenses are much cheaper at $23,000 a year. So you've got your total cost there of 93,000 and your net cost. And as an example, and I'm sure you're all keeping your spreadsheets of all this information of exactly what you can look like to make these calculations. I think I only have a few slides left, so we should have a good amount of time for your questions. I just want to cover these ones before we go into those, because these are ones we receive all the time, and it's just easier to talk about it now. So what if you have a quote unquote exploding offer from another school? How do I let you know? How fast can I expect to receive response? So this is the practice some schools employ of giving a scholarship offer and giving you, 24 or 48 hours to decide. It's not something that we practice, just because we do believe we want you to have time to think about that and not make this huge decision in a very stressful day or two. But some schools do that. You can submit the reconsideration form, and there's a question in there about if your offer has a deadline within the next 5 business days. So make sure you select yes. And then when we are looking through our spreadsheets of that data, it'll be highlighted so that we know to try to review those. That being said, if it really is within 1 to 2 days, most likely we're not going to be able to get you a response within a day or two. Keeping in mind, again, we receive hundreds of requests. So if that's the case, go back to the other school, and ask for a deadline extension. I don't know if they would be willing to give that or not, but that would be your best case scenario. Otherwise, most likely we're not able to respond within a day or two. If you have a week, we can try within that time, but within a day, it's just really tough. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about the process. Let's see. So you've not received your initial gift aid offer. Should I wait before requesting reconsideration? So as I mentioned, most of you should have received some sort of decision about initial gift aid, whether or not you received that. And so you should proceed with reconsideration. For those of you that were recently admitted and you haven't gotten an email yet about initial gift aid offers, you should proceed directly into reconsideration for that. And then I've got several offers from schools that I'm considering. Can I submit multiple offers? How do I decide which one? Where I'm hoping with the guidance this year that that'll help kind of narrow down which one to select. Unfortunately, we do just allow the one. And it's helpful for us to know which one you're most highly considering. If you were to give us the 5 of the different offers that you have, from a reviewer standpoint, for us, it's hard to know then within that list of schools, which are the ones that you're actually most likely to attend. So that's why we do ask you to narrow it down to that one school. I'm still on some of my top choices wait lists. Should I request reconsideration now with an offer I have, or should I wait to hear back from those schools? So it sort of depends. I think if you haven't gotten an admissions decision yet, you could wait a little bit of time. I mean, I would probably wait a couple weeks to see. If you're already on a school's wait list, it depends on the messaging they send out. A lot of schools don't plan on actually going to their wait list until later on in the summer. So if that's the case, I would submit reconsideration with an offer that you have now. And keep in mind when you do accept our offer, you do have to withdraw from all other schools except for schools that you're on a wait list for, or if you've not yet received a decision from, you can still wait to hear from those. So it doesn't really hurt to apply earlier if you do have another offer that you need to get back to and you want to submit reconsideration with that, because you would not have to withdraw yet. So I submitted my request for reconsideration on March 20th. I still haven't heard back yet. What should I do? As we mentioned, we are trying our best to get to review those by the decision that you do post. Sometimes we're not able to do that. So if it gets to be like the day before another school's deadline, the best course of action would be to go back to that other school and request a little bit more time to make a decision and explain that you're still waiting to, receive other offers. Schools are usually receptive to this, especially if you do give a good reason. And if you give them a date within like a week of your deadline, if you just ask for a blanket extension, they might say no to that. But I think if you give good reasoning and maybe you just need a few more days, generally they're able to extend that. And then we do our best to like try to get back to you as soon as possible so that you can make that informed decision. Okay, so I sent in another offer and the school's deadline was April 10th. It's April 9th and I've not heard back from you. What should I do? I think I just covered this. Basically, we try to ask for an extension. Even if that date has passed, the deadline for the other school, we are going to still consider it a live request unless you email us or withdraw in Cal Central and say you're no longer considering Berkeley Law. And then I think the last one here I covered. About removing yourself from other schools' wait lists. And then just a quick note about other types of aid outside of our general gift aid process. We do have continuing student scholarships. So all of the gift aid that you receive as a 1L is going to be continue through your second and third year as long as you remain in general good standing at the school. But we also have specific scholarships that you can apply for as a second and third year student. So many of our students are able to get additional money for their second and their third year. We also have work opportunities. Students are able to work as research assistants or GSIs their second or their third year of law school. We have outside scholarships on our website. We have a huge list of outside scholarships that you can apply for, and you can search by key terms and apply for those. And a lot of students are able to successfully get even those small awards that can really help to add up. And then just contact information and resources. If you're a public interest student and you want more information about our LRAP program, there's a whole website dedicated to that Amanda runs, and there's videos on there and a ton of information. But if you did want to have a one-on-one counseling appointment, you can also make that directly with her. General questions can go to admits@law.berkeley. If you want to have financial aid questions, want to make a financial aid appointment, our financial aid team has those on their website. There's a few other resources listed here for specific populations that you might be interested in. And then just a quick note that if you do have any sort of special financial circumstances, if you're an international student, undocumented, you have an adverse credit history, you're military or veteran, anything like that, where you think your financial situation or eligibility for a gift aid or loans might be different, we do recommend you make an appointment to talk with a counselor about that. Okay. I think that was all of the presentation. So we've got a good amount of time, 30 minutes, to answer any questions you all have.
Would you like to look at these, or do you want me to read them aloud for you? We have a lot for you.
Sure, if you want to read them.
Okay. Do you have a median amount of time that someone will take to get a reconsideration response from us?
No, I don't. I mean, off the top of my head, that's not some of the data crunching that we've done. So not anything concrete that I could give. I will say, like, so we do try to prioritize to get people decisions back that have early deadlines. So if you, for example, submit today and you have an April 1st deadline, we're going to try to make sure you get a decision back before that. If you submit and you have a deadline later in April, it's completely possible you might not hear from us till a little bit later. So if you submit and don't hear from us within a week or two, that's completely normal. But yeah, it's kind of hard depending on the deadline and how fast you submit and how like much time you have really.
Okay. Can you tell us, you have any updates about Hyundai Kia? That doesn't happen until April or May, does it?
Hyundai Kia, yeah, that one is, I believe we only have 2 or 3 awards for that, and it's specifically for those that applied for it in their application and wrote an essay about like your interest in, tech and engineering. Those ones do sometimes go out through reconsideration. Sometimes they go out later in the spring or summer. So it depends. But I think we only have 2 awards for that. So it's not an award we're giving out a lot, if that makes sense.
What is the sort of documentation you can provide as a competing offer from another school? Would an email suffice?
Yeah, any kind of written documentation you have that lists like the school name, the award amount in there for your first year and for all 3 years, that would be fine. An email, it doesn't have to be the official PDF letter that the school gives you, but we do need it in written form, and like a verbal offer wouldn't count.
Okay. What would you say what is a peer school? Is it T14, T20? How would you define such a thing?
It's hard. Yeah,
Um,
there's no definition that we particularly hold for a peer school. And so that's why in that list that we came up with, we didn't directly refer to it as a peer school. If you're asking about as far as like how did we calculate that, or how do we come up with that list that we gave of the schools, again, that's purely from the data of the schools that we see the most in this process, and the ones that we are most likely to be able to match or give a substantial portion of the awards you're receiving from those schools. But outside of that, we don't have like a general definition for peer school.
if Are you at a disadvantage in the reconsideration process if you have already or you intend to do like a hard confirm of your enrollment at Berkeley?
Sorry, could you repeat that question, Amanda?
Yes, if somebody has already intended to enroll in Berkeley, as in they've accepted their offer of admission, does that put them at at a disadvantage in the reconsideration process?
So not necessarily. Keep in mind though, if you have already committed to attend Berkeley and you were awarded gift aid with that and you've accepted your gift aid award, you can only go through reconsideration if it's a new offer that you recently received. But yes, you can still go through reconsideration and you wouldn't be at a disadvantage.
Okay. Comparatively, how likely is a student awarded gift aid on the basis of financial need versus a competing offer, especially if we are waiting on another offer or aid package and are worried about the deadline? This person's probably weighing when they should do the reconsideration form based
Yeah,
on
that's what
need versus merit.
that's kind of what I'm thinking that they're asking. So every year we do have students that go through the form that are purely applying for need. And I think it can be a compelling request if there is additional information that wasn't initially captured in your SGA. If you feel like you submitted that, you provided, all of the questions you answered sufficiently and it captures your need situation, um, you might not get a different response from us if you go through reconsideration, but there are cases where something has come up recently, you need to provide further explanation about a financial situation going on in your life or a health situation, something like that, where we really do see a need for additional aid and are able to award that. So if you're kind of weighing, I mean, as I said, you do have time. It just opened today, so do not feel like you need to submit the form today or in the next week. If you want to sit on it for a couple of weeks and see where you're at then, and if you've gotten any other offers, or if you have, a good offer from another school that you want to submit with, I would recommend you do that. And if you do decide you just want to go ahead and apply with the need, just think about, I would go back into your SJ, look at your responses, and just make sure you're providing us additional information that wasn't captured in there.
What percent of students still receive no gift aid after reconsideration? Or perhaps if you also want to chime in about how many people are successful in reconsideration.
Yeah, again, off the top of my head, I don't know those specific numbers. We did list in our FAQ document for last year, 54% of admitted students were offered gift aid. So again, due to our budget, we are not able to offer a gift aid for every single person. So it looked at about 54% for admitted students. And then I can tell you for students that decided to come here, that jumped to, I think, over 80% of our actual matriculated 1Ls had received gift aid from us, which kind of makes sense because a lot of the people that didn't receive an offer might have gone to a different school. But I can't tell you specifically, I mean, other than those numbers, what your particular percentile would be or chances would be for that.
Okay. If somebody is going to do reconsideration soon because maybe they have an April 1st deadline at another school, but they're also interviewing for full ride or large offers at other schools that will happen later, should they mention those interview processes in their reconsideration form?
Yeah, it can be helpful to know. I mean, obviously, we don't know the outcome of that yet. But I think if you have an April 1st offer and it's a strong offer that you're actually, you are going to potentially enroll there, then I would submit that. If at the end of the day you're going to turn down that offer and wait to see your other offers anyways, and if you have it like a full tuition at another school that you're going to hear from, the first week or two of April, then you might want to wait. So it kind of, again, depends on your decision-making process of what you're most likely going to accept. But yeah, if you have an April 1 that you are most likely going to accept, and you're not going to wait to find out the outcome for that, then yeah, you can go ahead and submit that and you can tell us, you might be a finalist for something else, but you're not sure yet.
Okay, someone says I have a significantly higher offer from a T20 school, not one of the ones listed in the dropdown, and a decent offer from one of the listed schools. Would you advise using the offer from the listed school or from the higher school? And they're considering both of those schools.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, our general advice is going to be to use an offer from one of those listed schools. The reason being is that we generally are able to match those, is, especially if it's a partial award. If you have a full tuition offer from a school that's not listed there, most likely we're not going to be able to offer you full tuition or kind of close to it. So I guess it depends on, and again, I would use the one you're actually most likely considering. So if you really are going to accept the full tuition, then you can apply with that. Um, and then just think about kind of your reasoning for putting that in there. But our general advice is going to be, if you have an offer from one of those schools listed, I would apply with that.
Okay. Someone says they were accepted, but considering taking a year off to strengthen their application and try to increase the amount of scholarships they would receive. Would Berkeley welcome my application again, or would I be at a disadvantage for not accepting this year's offer?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one that we get from some people that are kind of in the situation or thinking about working and saving up money for another year and going through the process again. So absolutely you can decide to withdraw and reapply again, and you're at no disadvantage. We see this quite frequently. And we understand, if you didn't decide to come here last year, particularly if you do make a note in your application next year that, this was the reason you had you had an offer from us, maybe you had other great offers and you just needed to save money and you wanted to go through reconsider the scholarship process again. So you wouldn't be at any disadvantage. I would recommend actually withdrawing and reapplying rather than deferring, because when you defer, you generally are not going to go through the process again for scholarship. So it's going to be better for you to withdraw and just reapply again as a new applicant.
Okay, someone is saying in our explanation of our reconsideration request, should we discuss the cost of attendance at the other school or focus more on the qualitative differences between?
That's up to you. We see people talk about both. So I suppose it's sort of what is most important to you. I think for a lot of people, it does come down to finances. So making a note of that. You do only have a limited amount of space. So it's about a paragraph, a few sentences. So you could always, I wouldn't make the whole thing about finances, but you could certainly mention just a quick cost comparison and then talk about your reasoning for why you see yourself being at Berkeley Law over the other school. But we don't expect like a super in-depth comparison of like our programs or anything like that. We just kind of want to know, why is this the other offer that you're considering, and basically why do you see yourself here?
Okay, and my or our apologies if we have been confusing. Someone says, I'm seeing two different answers regarding the March admits who have not received an offer. One says we're still being considered for merit and need-based aid, and there's no rush to submit a reconsideration request. Another says we can expect to not receive an initial offer and we should do reconsideration. Can you elaborate?
Sure. And I apologize if we've given out different messaging on that. So my understanding is, I believe the people that were admitted in March, it was like March 6th, 7th, and 8th. Those were the groups. So if you were admitted on one of those days, just because it was so recent, you are not going to get a response for like initial aid. So in order to be considered for gift aid, you should submit reconsideration. There's no rush on that. You don't have to submit it right away, but you shouldn't be waiting to hear from us. So that I believe is the policy, and I'm sorry if it was stated differently elsewhere.
By me. Someone's asking, can we um, do like a printout of the Q&As for this Zoom to put on the admit website? Like in the
Um,
answered questions.
I mean, we are recording this and this will be posted in its entirety on the admitted students website. We could probably look back at the Q&As that were asked and maybe add some of them. I don't know if we would add all of them just because the FAQ document is already at like 10 pages. So, but yeah, we could definitely look and see if we're getting asked the same question a lot and add it back to the document.
Okay. Someone is saying, can you bypass the SGA form and just go straight into reconsideration?
Yes, a lot of people do. SGA, I will say SGA doesn't just ask about financial situation. There, it does ask questions about other um, scholarships in there. So some of our donor funds have specific funding terms. They're looking for different profiles of people. So we ask a lot of questions on there that are not finance related. So that's why we do recommend everybody submit SGA, whether you feel like you have financial need or not. But a lot of people either basically say, I don't think I qualify for need, or just don't submit it. And you just wouldn't be assessed for need in that case.
Okay. Someone says, what if Berkeley is our only other offer of admission at the moment, or the only offer of admission that ends up happening? Is the default intent to matriculate a good enough reason to submit for reconsideration? AKA, what do you do when you have no other schools for comparison?
Yeah. Again, I can't stress this enough. Like, take your time, see what happens in the next few weeks. Like, I know from talking to colleagues at a lot of other schools, they're still getting out a lot of decisions and have a huge chunk of their class to fill up. So it's not uncommon for schools to still be getting back to folks in the next few weeks, even through like mid to end of April. So that might change. So I would wait. If you're still at the end of April and we're your only option, then the only other like real process you would be able to go through is asking based on need. So if you feel again like you have financial need that maybe wasn't reviewed, or you have additional information, you could submit that to us.
Okay. I have another question here. I've drafted a reconsideration letter, but it's over the word limit in the form. I feel like 150 words or 1,200 characters and is not enough to fully explain my circumstances and reasons. Is there a way I can instead upload a PDF document with a longer word count?
We would prefer for you not to. So the upload function that we have there is going to be for like the other award letter. So I don't believe you're able to upload multiple documents. And we realize the 1,200 character limit, which is about a paragraph, isn't giving you a ton of space. But the reason we limit it is just again because we have so many people going through reconsideration, hundreds of offers. And we're not only looking at what you write in there and just your general request, but again, we're reading through all of the information submitted. So just to save us time, we do ask that you try to compress everything down into that space. Thank you.
Okay. Someone says they have an April 3rd deadline for a competing offer. Is it likely that Berkeley will be able to respond to their reconsideration request before then?
Yeah, so we know that a lot of schools, just like we do with initial offers, have a deadline of April 1st or April 2nd or April 3rd, somewhere in that time frame. And that's why we do request, like if that's the offer you want to submit with, I would recommend submitting reconsideration as soon as possible. So either like today or tomorrow in the next couple of days. So that gives us time, and hopefully you would be part of that first group or the second group going out before your deadline day. So, we do our best, as we've said, we do our very best to read and try to get back to you by that time. So as long as you give us time and apply as soon as you can, most likely, yes, we would be able to get back to you, but we just can't guarantee it.
No more questions right now. If we want to wait 30 seconds to see if any more appear.
Sure.
Do you have any final words, Alice?
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. It looks like somebody else is raising their hand, so maybe you're typing. So we'll stay on for another minute to answer any last minute questions.
Okay, we have two offers for the same dollar amount. One at a school with a similar cost and one with a higher cost. Will Berkeley match the dollar amount or focus on the different cost of attendance?
Um, I mean, I think that's probably getting a little too granular. If you have two schools with similar offers, again, our advice would just be to choose the one that you were most likely considering. We're looking at a number of factors. We're not just comparing dollar amounts. We're not looking at ranking or a number of things. We're looking at what you're talking about in your request as well. So I don't know if we have a definite answer to that question.
Someone says if we receive $0 from Berkeley initially, but we have about a 70% scholarship from one of the schools listed in the drop down, is there a chance they could get a similar offer from Berkeley?
Yeah, definitely. And this is what I was trying to say earlier, probably not particularly eloquently, in the fact that we can't give a lot of initial offers, and it's not uncommon for people to receive or to get no initial offer from us, but to submit a very compelling case through reconsideration and have this great offer, and we are able to match those sometimes. So definitely I've seen people jump from having no money to like a very substantial, like almost full tuition offer based on requests. So it's definitely not out of the ballpark, and you should submit that request.
Okay, someone said, I'm still confused about the SGA versus the reconsideration form for March admits. I thought you mentioned we should go straight to reconsideration if we were admitted this March, but then you said not to skip the SGA. Does this mean we should just submit both at once? Yes.
Yeah, so no, sorry, the SGA is not like it's just our financial aid form. You can think of it like that. So you should definitely still submit the SGA if you want to be considered for need-based aid. It just means like you shouldn't be waiting to hear from an initial offer from us. So once you submitted SGA, you should submit reconsideration, but at any point. It does not have to be right now. You could wait and see what your offers are and apply later for reconsideration. So SGA, in other words, is not going to like trigger a response from us.
I hope that answers
Yeah, I'm hoping
this
that
two
answers it.
parts of this um, question.
Okay. Um, okay, there's no other questions that I see. So I think we're going to end it there. But thanks so much for joining. This is going to be posted for future viewing. If you want to go back, you can always make an appointment if you would like to talk with somebody a little bit more, if you have additional questions. And thanks so much, everyone, for being here. And thanks for Amanda and all the rest of the financial aid team for being here and helping out with the questions.
Thank you.